In terms of starting the process, anything that clients, like what would be your top 3 recommendations for what to do before contacting a lender?
So when you start thinking about wanting to purchase a home, whether it's 6 months out, 3 months out, whatever it might be, I always tell everybody, don't make any assumptions. Don't think, oh my gosh, I have to pay off all my debt before I can contact the lender, because sometimes that has unintended consequences. It can actually hurt you rather than help you.
Right.
So that's a real big one. A lot of times people make assumptions that they have to have a 20% down payment, and that is a myth. You can have as little as a 0 to 3% down payment depending on the type of loan that we are offering you. So the big takeaway of that is that you want to contact the lender right up front. Be very upfront and transparent with everything about your finances.
We're all on the same team. I think sometimes that's important to...
It is.
Yeah.
It's not like if you tell the lender something, they're going to say, oh, sorry, you're not qualified.
Right.
It's really about helping you to get in position and educating you to figure out how to make it possible for you to buy and you be comfortable with it.
Right.
So you should think a little bit about your budget ahead of time.
Yes.
What you think your comfortable mortgage payment would be. And then it will be our job to talk together and decide if that's something that you can achieve at a price point in the area in which you're going to be looking to buy a home.
Right. I think it's also important for people to just think about their lifestyle, because I think you have an idea of what they're qualified for, but you don't have maybe all the necessary information about, oh, we love to travel every month and we love to do this, and this is not something that we plan to change. So
yes,
that's one of those things that I think people neglect to think about, how their
Very
life might change.
Important point.
Yeah. So how would somebody start the process with you? Like, what does that process look like? Do they give you a call? Do they fill out an application?
Right. So I always like to have a 10 to 15 minute introductory call so that I can learn about that person and their goals for purchasing a home. And then once we have that conversation, I'll usually direct them to my website to fill out an application. It takes 15-20 minutes. You can upload all your docs into a secure portal. Once I receive that, we'll pull credit. I'll review everything. Then I'll come up with some recommendations based on the initial conversation, the types of loans that we might recommend for them. And then we'll circle back and have either a face-to-face meeting or a call to go over all the numbers in detail to make sure everybody understands everything and can ask questions.
Great.
And that's all best done before they're out looking at homes, because once they determine the price point that they're comfortable in, then as their realtor where to take them to look so that they don't fall in love with a home that maybe they're just not comfortable with the numbers on.
What kind of documents should they be prepared to upload when they sit down to do the application?
So usually it's going to be your most recent 30 days of pay stubs, your last 2 years of W-2s, your last 2 months of bank statements, photo ID, and in some cases, if you're self-employed, tax returns.
Okay. And then if you're purchasing with someone else, a friend or a spouse or a child, do you both have to fill out an application?
You do.
Okay. But not everyone has to be on the loan, right?
No.
So it just depends on
whoever income is going to be used for qualifying and credit score, is usually who you want on the loan.
Right.
Even if you don't need a spouse's income on the loan, a lot of times if you're married, for instance, you want to both be on the loan, or even if you're just living together, you'd want to both be on the loan. It just means you're jointly obligated on the loan.
Right.
But sometimes you have, families where one spouse or the other is not working.
Right.
And so they're not really going to lend anything to it. And it's just easier, the other spouse is okay with them not being on the loan, but they can be on the title and still have ownership in the property.
For sure, especially in Virginia. So how would a person know if there's any hidden costs? I know we talked a little bit about this, but any hidden costs thrown in at the last minute?
Well, the most important thing that I see is that having the lender give you their closing cost estimate or their loan estimate right up front is going to be really important. I've seen people that have come to me that have pre-approval letters and they say, hey, I'm pre-approved by so-and-so. But the lender has not given them numbers. They just said, yes, you want to buy a house at 500,000, you're pre-approved, and they think they're good to go, but they really haven't seen the numbers, and they don't really realize that they need to see the numbers.
Right.
So asking for a closing cost estimate or a loan estimate from the lender with a breakdown of the fees, closing costs, and the monthly payment is your best defense against something coming up that shouldn't come up. Once a lender puts that out to you, if they're a reputable lender, they'll stand behind that.
Anything that can go sideways or that you see goes sideways with the loan process that could be mitigated by?
I think going back to, again, as long as you are transparent up front and you've provided all of your documents up front, that's important. Funds, a lot of times this is where people run into problems, or where a loan could go sideways.
Right.
When we have to document the funds that are available for closing costs, sometimes what happens is people don't give us all of their bank statements. We don't necessarily always need every bank statement,
Right.
but we do need the bank statements that you are going to be using for down payment and closing costs. And if we see any large deposits coming in, things of that nature, and that's why, again, it's important for us to have this up front and not when the underwriter finally gets the file. We are going to ask where those large deposits came from.
Right.
And they're usually large amounts. They're percentages of your income, so there's no real set amount, but let's just say $5,000 or $10,000 coming into an account. So we're more concerned with deposits coming in. We're going to ask you, where did that money come from? And I've had people say, well, I had it saved in my house,
Right.
in my safe. That's not an acceptable source. That's where a loan might go sideways. Sometimes people are bringing money in from overseas.
Right.
We have to be able to document an overseas account and show the paper trail of the money coming in.
Right.
Sometimes people are getting gifts. All of a sudden we'll see $25,000 land in an account that maybe wasn't on the account statement somebody provided us at pre-approval, but then when we needed to get an updated statement, it's there. And we'll say, they'll say, oh, that was a gift from my grandmother. Well, there's certain documents that have to be filled out if there's a gift. A gift is okay, but it has to be documented properly.
Right.
So if the grandmother doesn't have access to computers and things like that, it's going to be a really cumbersome process. Then people will get frustrated. So that's why anything like that coming in will be helpful and will prevent the loan from going sideways if we know about it up front.
Right. Right. So it sounds like communication is key, and making sure that you have all your documents in place.